The vast expanse of space was no longer a mystery to the beings that called it home. Among the countless stars and planets, a powerful force had risen. The Galactic Empire, a name that struck fear into the hearts of many, ruled over much of the known universe. In the year 2750, the Empire's grip on power was stronger than ever. Their massive ships, each the size of a small moon, patrolled the galaxies. These behemoths carried weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Empire's soldiers, clad in shiny black armor, were a common sight on thousands of worlds. At the heart of the Empire stood the Emperor, a being of immense power and cruelty. No one knew his true form, for he always appeared as a shadowy figure on giant screens. His voice, cold and metallic, issued orders that shaped the fate of billions. The Empire's rule was harsh. They demanded absolute loyalty and crushed any sign of rebellion. Entire species were enslaved, forced to work in mines or factories. Those who resisted often disappeared, never to be seen again. Yet in this dark time, there was a glimmer of hope. Far from the Empire's central worlds, on the outer edge of the Milky Way, there was a small blue planet called Earth. The humans who lived there were still new to space travel. They had only recently started to explore beyond their solar system. Earth was not part of the Empire, at least not yet. The Empire knew about Earth but saw it as a primitive world, not worth their immediate attention. This gave humanity a chance to grow and develop without the Empire's oppressive rule. On Earth, life went on much as it had for centuries. People went about their daily lives, mostly unaware of the great dangers that lurked in the stars. They built cities that reached into the sky and ships that could travel to nearby stars. Earth's governments worked together in an uneasy alliance, united by the common goal of expanding into space. Sarah Chen, a young scientist, stood in her lab in New Beijing. She looked out the window at the busy streets below. Flying cars zipped between towering skyscrapers. Holographic ads flashed on every corner. It was a scene of progress and hope. But Sarah knew the truth. She was part of a secret group that monitored deep space. They had picked up transmissions from the Empire. The messages they intercepted painted a grim picture of life under Imperial rule. "We need to prepare," Sarah muttered to herself. She turned back to her work, a new type of energy shield that could protect ships from the Empire's weapons. Meanwhile, in a small town in what was once called America, a family prepared for a journey. John and Maria Thompson, along with their young son Timmy, were part of Earth's first attempts at colonizing other planets. They were heading to New Hope, a small colony on a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri. "Are you excited, Timmy?" John asked as he packed the last of their belongings. The boy nodded eagerly, clutching his favorite toy spaceship. "Will we see aliens?" Maria laughed softly. "Maybe, sweetie, but remember, we have to be careful out there." Little did they know, their journey would set in motion events that would change the fate of humanity forever. As Earth's people went about their lives, the Empire's shadows crept closer. On a distant world, an Imperial commander received new orders. His cold eyes scanned the holographic message. "Investigate the human expansion," it read. "Assess their threat level." The commander smiled, a cruel twist of his alien features. Finally, he hissed, "Something interesting." The stage was set. Humanity stood on the brink of its greatest challenge. The peace they had known was about to be shattered. The Galactic Empire was coming, and Earth would never be the same again. The colony ship New Horizon glided silently through the vast emptiness of space. Inside, the Thompson family settled into their small cabin. John and Maria watched as their son, Timmy, pressed his face against the window, his eyes wide with wonder at the stars streaking by. "When will we get there, Dad?" Timmy asked, his voice filled with excitement. John ruffled his son's hair. "Soon, buddy. Just a few more days." The journey to New Hope, the human colony on Proxima Centauri, had been long but uneventful. The colonists, 500 in total, were eager to start their new lives on a distant world. Unknown to them, Danger lurked nearby. An Imperial scout ship, cloaked and silent, had been following the New Horizon for days. Inside, Commander Zex of the Galactic Empire watched the human ship with cold, calculating eyes. "Primitive technology," he sneered. "How did these apes ever make it into space?" His second-in-command, Lieutenant Varn, spoke up. "Sir, should we not report this to High Command?" Zex waved a clawed hand dismissively. "No need. We can handle this ourselves. Prepare the boarding party." Back on the New Horizon, alarms suddenly blared to life. Captain Sarah Lee's voice came over the intercom, tight with tension. "All passengers, please remain calm and stay in your cabins. We have detected an unknown ship approaching." In their cabin, Maria clutched Timmy close. "John, what's happening?" Before John could answer, a violent shudder ran through the ship. The lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Timmy whimpered in fear. Suddenly, the door to their cabin burst open. Silhouetted against the emergency lights in the corridor stood a tall, menacing figure. Its armor was black as night, with glowing red eyes that scanned the room. "Humans detected," it said in a metallic voice. "Surrender for processing." John stepped forward, arms spread wide to shield his family. "Please, we mean no harm. We're just colonists." The Imperial soldier raised its weapon. "Resistance detected. Initiating termination protocol." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The soldier fired, a bolt of energy streaking towards John. But at the last moment, Timmy broke free from his mother's grasp. "No, don't hurt my dad," the boy cried, leaping in front of his father. The energy bolt struck Timmy squarely in the chest. For a moment, the child stood still, a look of surprise on his face. Then he crumpled to the floor, lifeless. "Tim." Maria's scream of anguish echoed through the ship. The Imperial soldier paused, its programming momentarily confused by the child's actions. In that instant, John lunged forward, tackling the soldier. They grappled fiercely, John's rage giving him strength he never knew he had. More soldiers poured into the cabin. The air filled with the sound of energy weapons and human screams. Through it all, Maria cradled Timmy's body, her tears falling on his still face. On the bridge, Captain Lee and her crew fought desperately against the Imperial boarders, but their weapons were no match for the advanced technology of the Empire. Send the distress signal," Lee gasped, blood trickling from a wound on her forehead. Her communications officer nodded grimly, fingers flying over the console. The battle was short but brutal. Within an hour, it was over. The New Horizon drifted silently in space, its hull scarred by weapons fire. Inside, the Imperial soldiers moved efficiently, rounding up survivors. Commander Zex strode through the corridors, surveying the carnage with satisfaction. "Load the survivors onto our ship," he ordered. "Destroy this vessel. Leave no trace." As the Imperial ship pulled away, charges detonated throughout the New Horizon. The colony ship exploded in a brief bright flare, scattering debris across the void. Light years away on Earth, a technician jolted awake as an alarm sounded on her console. The distress signal from the New Horizon flashed on her screen, carrying with it the brief, terrifying message. "Under attack. Unknown aliens. Casualties. Child killed. Help." The technician's hand shook as she reached for the comm unit. "Get me the president," she said, her voice trembling. Now. The news of Timmy's death and the attack on the New Horizon was about to reach Earth, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same again. The news of the attack on the New Horizon spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours, every screen on the planet blazed with the same headline: "Alien Empire attacks human colony ship. Child killed." In the White House, President Elena Rodriguez sat at her desk, her face pale with shock. Around her, advisors spoke in urgent tones, but their words washed over her unheard. Her eyes were fixed on a hologram floating above her desk, the last image transmitted from the New Horizon. It showed a small boy, his eyes wide with fear, moments before the fatal shot. "Timmy Thompson," she whispered, reading the name below the image. "We failed you." Suddenly, she stood up, her chair clattering to the floor. The room fell silent. "No more," she said, her voice quiet but filled with steel. "We will not stand by while our people are slaughtered. Call an emergency session of the United Earth Council. Now." Across the globe, leaders gathered. In a vast underground chamber beneath Geneva, representatives from every nation on Earth took their seats. The mood was somber, the air thick with tension. President Rodriguez took the podium. Her words echoed through the chamber and were broadcast to billions around the world. "Today, we face the greatest threat in human history," she began. "An alien empire, vast and cruel, has made its intentions clear. They see us as nothing more than animals to be conquered or killed." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "But we are not animals. We are humanity. We have faced extinction before, from nature, from our own folly. Each time, we have emerged stronger. Today, we face extinction from the stars. And I say, we shall overcome this too." A murmur ran through the crowd. Rodriguez continued, her voice rising. "I propose an initiative, one that will require sacrifice from every person on this planet. We will build a fleet, not just any fleet, but one that will make the heavens themselves tremble. I propose we construct 700,000 dreadnoughts." Gasps of shock filled the chamber. The number was staggering, beyond anything ever attempted in human history. "Impossible," someone shouted. "Nothing is impossible for humanity when we stand united," Rodriguez shot back. "Every factory, every laboratory, every resource we have will be dedicated to this task. We will work as we have never worked before." In the crowd, Dr. Sarah Chen, the scientist from New Beijing, stood up. "Madam President," she called out, "my team has developed a new shield technology. With some refinement, it could protect our ships from the Empire's weapons." Rodriguez nodded. "Excellent. You'll have whatever you need, Dr. Chen." As the meeting continued, the plan took shape. Earth would transform itself into a war machine. Every aspect of society would be geared towards the construction of the fleet and the development of new technologies to fight the Empire. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, the remnants of humanity's small space fleet assembled. They would be the first line of defense, while the dreadnoughts were built. Admiral Jack Harper stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiant, watching as ships took up defensive positions. "It's not much of a fleet," his XO commented. Harper's jaw tightened. "It's all we have. And by God, we'll make it count." Back on Earth, as night fell, cities blazed with light as factories roared to life. In every home, on every street, humans gathered to watch President Rodriguez's speech. "We do not seek this war," she concluded, "but neither will we shy from it. The road ahead will be long and hard, but at the end of it lies not just survival, but victory. For Timmy Thompson, for all our lost brothers and sisters, we will prevail." Cheers erupted around the world. In homes and bars, in factories and labs, humans raised their fists in defiance. The message was clear. Earth would not go quietly into the night. The Galactic Empire had awakened a sleeping giant, and all the galaxy would soon know the strength of human resolve. As dawn broke on a new era, humanity girded itself for war. The greatest undertaking in human history had begun, and somewhere out in the darkness of space, an empire that had stood for millennia was about to face a force it could never have imagined. The sun rose on a changed Earth. Gone were the leisurely days of peace. In their place came a frenzy of activity unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Project Dreadnought had begun. In what was once Central Park, New York, a massive shipyard now stood. Skeletal frames of enormous ships rose into the sky, their half-finished hulls gleaming in the morning light. Similar scenes played out across the globe. From the Sahara Desert to the Australian outback, from the depths of the oceans to the peaks of mountains. Dr. Sarah Chen wiped sweat from her brow as she stared at the holographic display before her. The new shield design was almost ready. "Run the simulation again," she ordered her team. They had been working non-stop for weeks, but time was a luxury they didn't have. As the simulation began, a loud cheer erupted from the other side of the lab. Sarah turned to see what was happening. "We did it," shouted Dr. Ravi Patel, his face beaming. "The new fusion drive is stable. We can reach speeds we never thought possible." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Progress was being made, but they still had a long way to go. Meanwhile, in a secret facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Maria Santos watched as recruits trained on advanced flight simulators. These weren't ordinary pilots. They were the best of the best, chosen from every nation on Earth. Again, she barked as a young pilot's simulated dreadnought exploded on the screen. "The Empire won't give you second chances. Neither will I." The recruits pushed themselves harder, their determination evident in every line of their bodies. They knew what was at stake. In orbit, the first of the new defense satellites came online. Admiral Harper watched from the bridge of the Defiant as the satellite's energy shield flickered to life. "It's not much," his XO commented, "but it's a start." Harper nodded grimly. "Let's hope it's enough to buy us time." Back on Earth, in factories around the world, production lines hummed day and night. Robots worked tirelessly, assembling components for the massive dreadnoughts. Human supervisors kept a watchful eye, ensuring every piece met the exacting standards required. In one such factory in Brazil, a worker named Joel noticed a slight imperfection in a hull plate. Without hesitation, he hit the emergency stop button, halting the entire production line. "Every piece must be perfect," he said to his surprised coworkers. "Our lives depend on it." His supervisor nodded approvingly. This was the spirit that would see humanity through. As weeks turned into months, the first dreadnought neared completion. President Rodriguez stood before it, dwarfed by its immense size. The ship was a masterpiece of engineering, bristling with weapons and protected by shields far beyond anything humanity had possessed before the war began. "She's beautiful," Rodriguez whispered. "And deadly," added Dr. Chen, who stood beside her. "This ship could take on an entire Imperial fleet." Rodriguez turned to the assembled crowd of workers, scientists, and military personnel. "Today," she announced, her voice carried by speakers to every corner of the massive hangar, "we christen the first of our dreadnoughts. In memory of the child whose death sparked our resolve, I named this ship Timmy's Vengeance." A roar of approval went up from the crowd. As if in response, the ship's systems came to life, lights blinking across its hull. Far from Earth, on the edge of the solar system, a lone sensor buoy picked up a signal. Imperial ships were approaching. In the war room beneath Geneva, alarms blared. Leaders from around the world gathered around a holographic display of the solar system. Admiral Harper's voice came through, tense but controlled. "Multiple Imperial ships detected. They'll reach Mars orbit in 72 hours. President Rodriguez looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each person present. "This is it," she said softly. "The moment we've been preparing for. Is Timmy's Vengeance ready?" Dr. Chen nodded. "As ready as it can be." Rodriguez took a deep breath. "Then let's show the Empire what humanity is capable of. Launch the ship. May God be with us all." As Timmy's Vengeance rose from Earth's surface, a cheer went up around the world. Humanity's first true warship was heading into battle. The war had begun in earnest, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The vast emptiness of space was shattered by the appearance of Timmy's Vengeance. The massive dreadnought moved with surprising grace, its engines glowing with barely contained power. On the bridge, Captain Lyra Khan stood tall, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension that filled the air. "All systems nominal, Captain," her first officer replied. "Shields at maximum. Weapons hot and ready." Lyra nodded, They were as ready as they could be. Now, they just had to hope it was enough. Back on Earth, the launch of Timmy's Vengeance had sparked a new wave of determination. In shipyards around the world, work on the remaining dreadnoughts intensified. People worked around the clock, pushing themselves to the limit and beyond. In one such shipyard in Australia, a young engineer named Tom collapsed from exhaustion. His co-workers rushed to his aid, but Tom waved them off. "I'm fine," he gasped, struggling to his feet. "We can't stop. Not now. Not ever." This scene was repeated countless times across the globe. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before, driven by a common purpose: survival. Meanwhile, in the war room beneath Geneva, President Rodriguez and her advisors watched the holographic display with bated breath. The red dots representing the Imperial fleet were getting closer by the minute. "What's the status of our other defenses?" Rodriguez asked, her eyes never leaving the display. General Santos stepped forward. "The orbital defense grid is online and at full power. Ground-based ion cannons are charged and ready, and our remaining space fleet is in position around Mars." Rodriguez nodded grimly. It wasn't much compared to the vast power of the Empire, but it was all they had. And the evacuation. Proceeding as planned. Admiral Harper's voice came through the comm system. "Underground shelters are at 80% capacity. We should have everyone below ground within the next 12 hours. As they spoke, all across Earth, people were saying goodbye to the sky. They knew that the coming battle might ravage the planet's surface. Their homes, their cities, everything they had known might soon be reduced to ashes. But still, they went into the shelters with hope in their hearts, for they knew that above them, humanity's defenders were preparing to make their stand. In orbit around Mars, Admiral Harper stood on the bridge of the Defiant. Around him, the remnants of Earth's original space fleet formed up, a pitifully small force compared to what was coming. But each ship was crewed by men and women who had sworn to defend Earth to their last breath. "This is Admiral Harper to all ships," he said, his voice carried to every vessel in the fleet. "I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. The enemy we face is powerful, merciless, and vast in number. But remember this: we fight not just for our own lives, but for the lives of every man, woman, and child on Earth. We fight for our homes, our families, our very existence as a species." He paused, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so peaceful. "Each of you is a hero. No matter what happens in the coming battle, know that Earth will remember your sacrifice. May God be with us all. Harper out." As his words faded, a cheer went up from every ship in the fleet. They might be outnumbered, outgunned, facing an enemy with technology far beyond their own, but they had something the Empire could never understand: the indomitable spirit of humanity. On Timmy's Vengeance, Captain Khan received a transmission from Earth. It was a simple message, but one that brought tears to her eyes. "From the people of Earth to our defenders, give them hell." As the message played throughout the ship, the crew stood a little straighter, their resolve strengthened. They were humanity's first, last, and only line of defense, and they were ready. In the darkness of space, the first Imperial ships appeared. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, resting on the shoulders of brave men and women willing to sacrifice everything for their home. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as two forces, unimaginably different yet both born of the same vast universe, prepared to clash in a battle that would determine the future of an entire species. The vastness of space erupted into chaos as the first shots of the war were fired. The Imperial fleet, a sea of sleek, dark ships, advanced relentlessly towards Mars. Their weapons flared to life, sending beams of destructive energy towards the human defenders. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral Harper shouted. The bridge of the Defiant shook violently as the ship narrowly avoided a direct hit. Across the battlefield, human ships danced and weaved, their smaller size allowing them to dodge many of the Imperial attacks. But for every shot they avoided, another found its mark. Human vessels exploded in silent bursts of fire and debris. Yet, the humans fought on. Their weapons, while less advanced, were fired with desperate precision. To the surprise of the Imperial commanders, the human ships were causing damage. On the bridge of the lead Imperial ship, Commander Zex watched the battle with growing frustration. "How are these primitives resisting us?" he snarled. "Increase firepower. Crush them." As the battle raged around Mars, Timmy's vengeance made its move. The massive dreadnought decloaked behind the Imperial fleet, catching them completely by surprise. "All weapons, fire," Captain Khan ordered. The ship shuddered as it unleashed its full arsenal. The effect was devastating. Imperial ships, caught unprepared, were torn apart by the barrage. For the first time in the battle, the Imperial line wavered. Back on Earth, in the war room, President Rodriguez watched the holographic display with a mix of hope and fear. "They're holding their own," she murmured. "But for how long?" As if in answer to her question, alarms blared. "Multiple Imperial ships have broken through." A technician shouted. "They're heading for Earth." Rodriguez's face hardened. "Activate the orbital defense grid. Prepare ground-based ion cannons. We will not let them take our home." In orbit around Earth, the defense satellites came to life. As the first Imperial ships approached, they were met with a wall of energy beams and missiles. The sky lit up with explosions. On the ground, in cities around the world, massive ion cannons rose from hidden bunkers. They fired in unison, their beams streaking into the sky to join the orbital defenses. The Imperial ships, caught between the hammer of Timmy's vengeance and the anvil of Earth's defenses, began to falter. But their sheer numbers meant the battle was far from over. In the Mars orbital shipyards, engineers worked frantically to complete more dreadnoughts. As each ship came online, it immediately joined the battle, turning the tide further in humanity's favor. Back in the thick of the fighting, Admiral Harper's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, form up on me. We're going to punch a hole in their line." The remaining human ships gathered around the Defiant. In a daring maneuver, they charged directly at the heart of the Imperial fleet. Imperial ships, caught off guard by the sudden aggression, scattered. The human fleet burst through, unleashing a barrage of fire as they went. On Timmy's vengeance, Captain Khan saw the opportunity. "All power to engines," she ordered. The dreadnought surged forward, its weapons blazing, exploiting the gap created by Harper's attack. The Imperial fleet, for the first time in living memory, was in disarray. Commander Zex watched in disbelief as his ships were outmaneuvered and outfought by the humans he had dismissed as primitives. "Impossible," he muttered. Then, louder, "Retreat. All ships, fall back and regroup." As the Imperial ships began to withdraw, a cheer went up from every human vessel. They had won the first battle. But the war was far from over. As the cheers faded, the grim reality set in. The space around Mars was littered with the debris of both human and Imperial ships. The cost had been high. On Earth, President Rodriguez addressed the world. "We have won a great victory today," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. "But this is only the beginning. The Empire will return, and we must be ready." In shipyards around the world, work on the remaining dreadnoughts intensified. The people of Earth, emboldened by their first victory, but aware of the challenges ahead, set themselves to the task with renewed vigor. As the first battle of the Galactic War came to an end, humanity stood bloody but unbowed. They had faced the might of the Empire and survived. Now, as they prepared for the battles to come, a new emotion began to spread. Hope. Hope that perhaps, against all odds, humanity might just win this war. 5 years had passed since the first battle of the Galactic War. Earth's skies, once filled with the scars of conflict, were now home to a vast armada. 700,000 dreadnoughts, each a floating city of metal and energy, stood ready to defend humanity. On the bridge of Timmy's Vengeance, now the flagship of the human fleet, Admiral Lyra Khan looked out at the assembled armada. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now shone with determination. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her XO announced. Khan nodded. "Then it's time. Send the signal. Today, we take the fight to the Empire." Across the fleet, engines flared to life. In a flash of light, the largest fleet ever assembled by any species in the galaxy jumped into hyperspace. On the Imperial capital world, alarms blared. Emperor Zex, once a mere commander, now ruler of a crumbling empire, stared in disbelief at the tactical displays. "Impossible," he whispered. "They can't be here. Not with a fleet that size." But they were. The sky above the Imperial capital turned into a sea of fire as the human fleet emerged from hyperspace. Leading the charge was Timmy's Vengeance, its weapons already blazing. "This is Admiral Lyra Khan of the Earth Defense Force." Her voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your empire of tyranny ends today." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Imperial ships, once the terror of countless worlds, found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered. The human dreadnoughts, products of 5 years of constant innovation and improvement, were more than a match for anything the Empire could field. On Earth, President Rodriguez watched the battle unfold via faster-than-light communications. Beside her stood John and Maria Thompson, Timmy's parents. "It's almost over," Rodriguez said softly. "Your son's death will not have been in vain." Tears streamed down Maria's face as she watched humanity's vengeance unfold. As the battle raged, other alien races, long oppressed by the Empire, saw their chance. Rebellions erupted on 1,000 worlds. The Empire, already reeling from the human assault, began to crumble from within. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zex frantically tried to rally his forces, but it was too late. The doors to his throne room burst open, and human marines stormed in, led by none other than Admiral Harper. "In the name of Earth and all free peoples of the galaxy," Harper declared, "you are under arrest." With the capture of the Emperor, the war effectively ended. But humanity's work was far from over. In the years that followed, Earth took on a new role, not conquerors, but liberators. The vast fleet that had been built for war now brought peace and aid to countless worlds. The Dreadnoughts, once instruments of vengeance, became symbols of hope. A new Galactic Council was formed, with Earth as a founding member. Aliens who had once feared humans as savages now looked to them as leaders and friends. On the 10th anniversary of the war's end, a grand ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from hundreds of alien races gathered to unveil a new monument, a statue of a small boy reaching out to the stars. President Rodriguez, now in her final term, stood before the assembled crowd. 10 years ago, we faced extinction, but we did not merely survive. We thrived. We turned our darkest hour into our finest moment, and we did it not just for ourselves, but for every race that had suffered under the Empire's rule. She turned to the statue. "Timmy Thompson's death sparked a fire in us. But that fire did not consume us with hatred. Instead, it forged us into something greater. Today, we are not just citizens of Earth, but guardians of the galaxy." As cheers erupted from the crowd, humans and aliens alike, a new chapter in galactic history began. Earth, once a small blue planet on the edge of an unfriendly galaxy, had become a beacon of hope, justice, and unity for all. And somewhere, in the vastness of space, the spirit of a brave little boy smiled down on the world he had helped save.